when I graduated too, some years later. But the impact of Harold's award is such that there are a few moments when each of us remember exactly where they were. I was at the Boston City Hospital when the Nobel Prize was announced in 1989. I was doing a lumbar puncture, what we used to call a triple blood culture on a patient with fever and HIV, 2 blood cultures and a lumbar puncture, and my instinct was to jump for joy. And I think everybody in the scientific community, not just the cancer research community, felt that this was an award that opened vistas. One of the things that many of us love about Harold is he's hypercritical for the best reasons. He's hypercritical because he knows we can do better. I'm not speaking for Connie, but he's hypercritical because he knows we can do better. He expects more of himself. He expects more of all of us. And for me, that's a message of hope. He's a constant advocate for the idea that science can open the way for a better life for mankind. And science at the highest level. So he's inspired, challenged, provoked, and pushed us to use scientific discovery and honest discourse to develop a better, more humane, and more collaborative world. That's at the heart of our mission at AUB. And he's never shied away from stepping up to take the toughest jobs, including at the worst times. And he's pushed us to look for the big ideas. The big ideas open things in a way that small science does not. Few men or women living today have more positively impacted the world than Harold Varmus. With that in mind, I'm going to clam up and invite our friend Harold Varmus to say a few words and take some.
Thank you, Fabio. A very, very nice way of introducing me to your audience and making this award, which I've done very little to deserve, but I did want to spend a couple of minutes to describe my relationship to AUB and some things that are pertinent to the future of AUB, I hope. Fabio has already mentioned my training at Amherst College, and I think many of you know that Amherst College had a great deal to do with the founding of AUB. Indeed, its first presidents were father and son from Amherst College. And I first became aware of AUB in 1984 when Cal Plimpton, who had been the president of Amherst College when I was a senior, became the president of AUB after the murder of Malcolm Kerr. Now, I had first met Cal Plimpton in 1960 when he had left his job as a relatively young faculty member at what was then Physicians and Surgeons, Columbia University's medical school. He had been a promising member of the medicine department at Columbia to become president of Amherst College, and in a sense a bit like Fadlow, merging his interest in medicine and science with his affection for students and faculty in a liberal arts college or university with a wide array of intellectual treats. But I didn't set foot on campus until, as Fadlow just mentioned, I came to the AUB campus in 2019, just before multiple calamities hit Beirut, and just before that one great calamity, COVID-19, which slowed our approach to the luncheon table today because we had to get tested on the spot before we could eat, and before these events descended on the world. But the time I was there was a good one, and indeed I pulled out a blog that I wrote from campus to some students of mine, providing validation if validation is needed, that it was indeed a good time to be in Beirut. And indeed my impressions from that time are of a place fairly small in overall geographical area, with an archaeology museum, not very far away from classrooms and for a wide variety of subjects, with medicine, modern science, the humanities, the arts, all congregated together in quite a small place. Little distance physically, intellectually, and socially between scholarly disciplines. Parties I went to had archaeologists talking to sociologists, and sociologists talking to medical types, and all in all, very fervent and interactive intellectual environment. And I was taking special note of these propinquities at the time because while I was traveling, I was also running a course at the City University of New York's Honors College, the Macaulay Honors College, a course that I've been giving to undergraduates for the past several years about the anatomy of the scientific enterprise and how scientists inevitably interact with many elements of society. In this course, for example, we talk about not just what science does, but why governments pay for it, how it's represented in the arts, in novels and movies and plays and painting, how science attempts to tell the true from the false, how scientists get judged and rewarded, how they promote their work through publication practices that vary dramatically, and how they turn discoveries into something useful or remunerative, or both. In brief, in that course, what I try to do is to introduce students, both those who are headed toward and those who are headed away from science, to appreciate that science is part of a complex fabric of human life, a part of the human experience, not a remote and private sanctum. So the drama of COVID-19 has made the role of science in society even more vital and perhaps more complex than ever. We invest in science because it seems to be the only thing we can do that might save us from the coronavirus. At the same time, a sizable portion of our species resists or even reviles the advice that science provides. So that links the natural sciences, which try to understand the nature of the virus and the way it infects us and causes disease, to the social sciences, the behavioral sciences, the political sciences, and to many other aspects of life, or reflections on epidemics that occurred hundreds of years ago and are recorded in literary and historical works. So the efforts to understand these connections and understand how the science we practice in the laboratory gets connected through other sciences to the world we all try to inhabit, and the way in which we're governed and the way we respond to national and international threats becomes even more important. It makes places like AUB, where various disciplines rub against each other, more important than they ever have been. And these become then places to defend, especially when times are bad, as they are now, not just in the world in general, but specifically in Lebanon. So thanks again for singling me out for this award, even at my early stage in my career as a member of your International Advisory Board, for giving me a few minutes at the podium to express a few thoughts and reverence for AUB, and for protecting a multidisciplinary culture at a time of its greatest need. Thanks.